Now consider this. Many people who are skeptical about whether God exists still tend to have pretty strong convictions about how we should live, about how the world should be, about what's right and what's wrong. Now, what's the problem with that? Let's find out. So you ask for an example of something that is wrong in the world, and they say something like genocide or terrorism or child molestation or human trafficking or racism or whatever they say. Your response, yes, I agree. And why is that wrong? Well, now, don't miss this. Unless they point to some sort of supreme lawgiver who determines moral behavior for all people at all times, well, then their answer to why is that wrong has to be subjective. In other words, it has to be based on merely personal opinion or societal norms. So why is genocide wrong? Well, everybody knows that it's wrong. Actually, that's a subjective opinion. Everybody doesn't know that it's wrong, otherwise it wouldn't exist. It wouldn't happen. So why is genocide wrong? Well, it's illegal. Actually, the law is subjective too, in the sense that it's based on societal norms at the time. It's been different in other times in different places. Might be different in the future. So why is genocide wrong? Well, because it harms people, and obviously harming people is wrong. Well, you see, even that is subjective. What if there's somebody else out there who doesn't think that harming people is wrong? So is there any objective, unchanging, immovable basis for us saying that genocide is wrong, or that anything is wrong for that matter? Not without an ultimate authority, not without a supreme lawgiver. In other words, not without God. Okay. This is called the moral standards argument for the existence of God, or the argument from morality. It's been around for a very long time. Immanuel Kant, maybe a name you've heard of, maybe the most famous, celebrated philosopher in the last 1,000 years, made this argument so eloquently, so powerfully. And C.S. Lewis popularized this argument in his book, Mere Christianity. And here's an excerpt from the book on this question of morality. Lewis says this. He says, the moment you say that one set of moral ideals can be better than another. In other words, no genocide is better than genocide. The moment you say that one set of moral ideals can be better than another, you are in fact measuring them both by some standard, saying that one of them conforms to that standard more nearly than the other. You are in fact comparing them both with some real morality, admitting that there is such a thing as real right, independent of what people think. Right. And his point is that we can't claim that something is moral or immoral, right or wrong, for all people at all times across all cultures, unless we recognize that there's a higher authority than what people think. And frankly, true atheists fully recognize the validity of this argument. To be consistent, they have to contend that there's no real right and wrong in the world. Richard Dawkins, maybe the most famous atheist on the planet today, said this quite directly. He said, the universe we observe has no evil, no good, nothing but blind, pitiless indifference. Wow. Nothing but blind, pitiless indifference. It's actually an echo of Friedrich Nietzsche from 150 years ago, of God is dead fame. And Nietzsche insisted that if there is no God, in other words, if God is dead, then the idea of morality is completely baseless, merely subjective. No reason to be kind to anyone or even civil. No reason to care about others, no reason to work for justice, no basis for any human rights. It's horrifying, isn't it? I heard this news story the other day of parents who are on trial for starving their 2 young boys. And when police found the 7-year-old, he was in critical condition. The 6-year-old had already passed away. The 6-year-old weighed only 18 pounds. And these boys were locked in a closet for 16 hours a day because they tried to steal food when their parents were asleep. Now, why am I telling you this story? Notice that an atheist can't even call that behavior wrong. Why? Because there's no evil, no good, nothing but blind, pitiless indifference in the universe. And I suspect that many people who think of themselves as atheists really have no idea the monstrous implications of that worldview. Again, this is the moral standards argument, or the argument for morality. But please don't miss the larger point here. Right? All this falls under this general question of how should we live. And the only way to have a rational, defensible answer to that is to agree that a supreme being is there who determines right and wrong.